In the soft glow of sunset along the scenic roads of Long Beach, Michael Carter, a black billionaire with a passion for philanthropy, drives home in his Tesla, his mind buzzing with the success of his latest project to bring computer science education to underprivileged schools. His journey, however, is abruptly halted when red and blue lights flash in his rearview mirror. With no clear reason for the stop, Officer Jack Collins approaches the vehicle. The badge on his chest glints under the streetlights, matching the sternness in his approach, introducing an air of tension to what should have been a peaceful end to an inspiring day. In the dimming light of a Long Beach evening, Officer Jack Collins approaches Michael Carter's Tesla, his gait purposeful and demeanor undeniably confrontational. As the officer nears, the tension palpable in the air, he coldly asserts that there have been reports of suspicious activities in the area. Michael, seated behind the wheel of his pristine car, responds with the calm and respectful demeanor of a man accustomed to handling undue accusations. He attempts to explain his presence in his own neighborhood, his voice even, trying to reach for his ID to provide proof of residence. However, Collins is not interested in explanations. With a dismissive wave of his hand, he interrupts Michael. "Keep your hands where I can see them." He barks, escalating the situation without cause. The officer's attitude is steeped in prejudice. His suspicions appear not based on evidence but on the color of Michael's skin and the luxury of his car. Michael complies, slowly placing his hands back on the steering wheel, his movements deliberate and visibly calculated to avoid further provocation. Ignoring Michael's composed demeanor and the legal documentation he offers, Collins decides to arrest him. "Step out of the vehicle now," he commands authoritatively. As Michael steps out, the officer roughly handcuffs him, the metallic click of the cuffs breaking the evening's quiet more sharply than any words could. This act of cuffing Michael, devoid of any legitimate legal basis, marks a stark misuse of power. Collins leads Michael to the patrol car, his grip tight on Michael's arm, as bystanders begin to gather, watching the scene unfold with a mix of shock and concern. As they approach the cruiser, Michael, still dignified despite the circumstances, turns slightly to the bystanders, his expression one of calm resolve. He does not resist, nor does he shout. Instead, he meets the gaze of the onlookers, silently communicating the injustice of the situation. Collins shoves Michael into the back seat of the patrol car and slams the door shut, the sound echoing down the street. The officer's actions are not just an arrest. They are a public display of power, intended to intimidate, but instead highlighting a profound violation of justice under the watchful eyes of the Long Beach community. This moment, captured by smartphones and witnessed by Michael's neighbors, becomes more than just an incident. It becomes a symbol of systemic issues within law enforcement, a stark visual reminder of the work still needed to combat racial profiling and police misconduct. In the stark fluorescent lighting of the police station, the atmosphere is heavy with the tension of Michael Carter's unjust arrest. As Officer Jack Collins processes the paperwork, Michael's demeanor remains impeccably composed, a stark contrast to the chaotic environment of the booking area. Amid the routine, Collins checks Michael's ID and his background on the police database, the computer screen illuminating facts that widen the officer's eyes with every line read. Michael Carter, it turns out, is not just a resident of one of Long Beach's most affluent neighborhoods. He's also a renowned philanthropist, whose recent initiatives include a significant partnership with the local hospital to improve healthcare access for underprivileged communities. As Collins digs deeper, his face pales when he uncovers photos from a recent charity gala, a gala that he, too, had attended, where Michael had been honored for his generous contributions. A realization dawns on Collins. He had not only arrested a prominent figure without cause, but had also interacted with him at an event celebrating his community efforts. The weight of his error crushes Collins with immediate regret. He recalls Michael's gracious speech about community service and unity, his warm demeanor at the event now clashing horribly with the cold, impersonal confines of the police station. Collins feels a profound sense of shame. His actions had been guided by baseless suspicions and stereotypes, not by the reality of Michael's character or his status within the community. Compounded by the growing anxiety of facing severe repercussions for his mistake, Colin's regret morphs into desperation. He realizes that this incident could not only tarnish his career, but also reflect poorly on the entire police department, potentially sparking outrage in the community. The officer's initial confidence crumbles as he confronts the possibility of public and professional backlash. With the pressing weight of his realization, Collins finds himself at a pivotal moment of personal and professional crisis, forced to reckon with the consequences of his actions driven by prejudice. Back at the police station, the atmosphere thickens with tension as Officer Jack Collins confronts the gravity of his mistake. His earlier assertiveness has dissolved into visible anxiety as he paces the narrow confines of the interrogation room where Michael Carter sits, still dignified despite the circumstances. Collins, keenly aware of the potentially career-ending implications of his actions, approaches Michael with a demeanor that starkly contrasts his initial aggressiveness. "Mr. Carter, I am truly sorry," Collins stammers, the regret in his voice palpable. His words hang in the air, heavy with the hope of redemption. He tries to explain his actions, attributing them to a misjudgment, but the excuses sound feeble even to his own ears. Collins is desperate not just for Michael's forgiveness, but also for a way to mitigate the damage his actions might have on his reputation and position. Michael listens quietly, his expression unreadable. After a moment of reflection, he responds not with anger, but with a calm and measured tone that carries the weight of authority and wisdom. "Officer Collins, your apology, while appreciated, isn't just about correcting a mistake. It's about understanding why the mistake was made in the first place." Michael's words are firm, aiming to instill a lesson in equality and respect that goes beyond mere apologies. Michael proposes that Collins participate in community engagement programs and attend workshops on racial bias and sensitivity training. He suggests that this incident be used as a case study in training sessions for the police department, to educate other officers on the profound consequences of racial profiling and misconduct. "Let's turn this unfortunate event into an opportunity for learning and growth, not just for you, but for the entire force," Michael adds, his voice imbued with a constructive rather than punitive intent. Collins, initially taken aback by the suggestion, realizes the potential to salvage not only his career, but also to contribute positively to the systemic changes needed within the police force. He nods slowly, recognizing the wisdom in Michael's response, and agrees to the proposal. Michael's approach, emphasizing education and systemic change over retribution, highlights his commitment to true justice and equality, setting a powerful example for Collins and potentially for the broader community. Inside the stark, gray walls of the police station, Michael Carter, maintaining his composure, takes a decisive step. He calmly retrieves his phone to call his lawyer, his voice steady and authoritative as he discusses his next move. With the guidance of his legal counsel, Michael orchestrates a press conference to be held immediately within the station itself, leveraging the unfolding situation to highlight a critical issue and exert pressure where it's most effective. As news of the press conference spreads, journalists and camera crews quickly converge on the station, their microphones and cameras poised to capture a story that is rapidly gaining traction. The buzz of anticipation fills the air, drawing attention not only locally but from national media outlets. Officer Jack Collins, now fully realizing the magnitude of his error and the spotlight it has attracted, feels the weight of public scrutiny bearing down on him. Under the intense glare of the media and the watchful eyes of the community, Collins steps up to the podium, his usual confidence replaced by a palpable nervousness. He clears his throat, his apology scripted but necessary. "I deeply regret my actions and the undue distress they caused to Mr. Carter," he begins, his voice faltering slightly. "My behavior was unjustifiable and reflected poorly on the values that our police force stands for. I am truly sorry for the harm I have caused." The room is tense as Collins acknowledges his wrongdoing, his words broadcast live, leaving no room for ambiguity about his remorse. The public apology, prompted by Michael's strategic push for accountability, marks a significant moment of public acknowledgement of police misconduct. Michael, standing aside, watches the scene unfold with a dignified air. His decision to turn a personal violation into a public discourse on police accountability demonstrates his resolve to influence change, not only for himself, but for the broader implications it holds for community police relations. This calculated move by Michael not only shifts the power dynamics, but also sets a precedent for how such incidents are handled, emphasizing transparency, accountability, and the need for systemic change. The repercussions of Michael Carter's arrest ripple far beyond the walls of the police station, catching the currents of media channels nationwide. As the news of the incident and Officer Jack Collins' public apology circulates, discussions about racial profiling and police conduct dominate headlines, talk shows, and social media platforms. The spotlight not only exposes the troubling behaviors of one officer, but also ignites a broader conversation on systemic issues within law enforcement across the country. In response to the unfolding story, communities rally in support of Michael, inspired by his poised handling of injustice and his subsequent push for accountability. Michael seizes this moment of widespread attention not only to address issues of police misconduct, but also to amplify his ongoing charitable work. He appears on various media outlets, discussing his initiatives to bring educational resources to underprivileged areas, thus intertwining his advocacy with actionable change for underserved communities. The visibility of his philanthropy receives a significant boost, garnering more support and funding, further empowering his mission. Back at the local level, the incident propels the police department into the limelight for all the wrong reasons, prompting urgent calls for reform. The pressure from the public and the undeniable evidence presented through Michael's situation lead to substantive changes within the department. Mandatory bias training programs are rolled out, aiming to educate officers on cultural sensitivity and the deep-seated issues of racial bias that pervade their work. Additionally, new community outreach initiatives are established to bridge the gap between law enforcement and community members, fostering dialogue and understanding in settings designed to break down barriers and build trust. These policy changes mark the beginning of a hopeful shift towards more equitable policing. Workshops and joint community police activities start to take place, allowing officers and community members to engage directly in non-confrontational environments. These programs aim not only to educate, but also to humanize both sides, highlighting shared concerns and objectives. The story of Michael's wrongful arrest and the ensuing aftermath serves as a powerful catalyst for change, illustrating how individual courage can spearhead community-wide advocacy and reform. Michael's ordeal turns into a narrative of resilience and empowerment, echoing across communities and prompting shifts in policy and perception that reach far beyond the initial injustice. As the dust settles on a whirlwind of media attention and community activism, Michael Carter takes a moment to reflect on the journey that began with an unjust arrest and transformed into a powerful catalyst for change. In the quiet of his office, surrounded by the plans for new initiatives and thank you letters from those he's helped, Michael contemplates the profound impact of his experiences. He acknowledges the pain and frustration of that night, but chooses to focus on the positive ripple effects that emerged from it. Michael is inspired by the conversations that his situation ignited about racial profiling and the necessary reforms in policing. He is heartened by the community's overwhelming support and the tangible changes within the police department. Rather than dwell on the past, he is motivated by the progress and the opportunity to contribute further to societal improvements. Every challenge, he muses, presents an opportunity to advocate for justice and drive meaningful change. With this philosophy guiding him, Michael launches a new major initiative, the Carter Community Tech Hubs. These centers are designed to provide access to technology and educational resources in underprivileged areas, aiming to empower communities and prevent the kinds of misunderstandings and biases that arise from inequality and lack of opportunity. By turning his personal ordeal into a platform for advocacy and innovation, Michael not only heals from his own negative experiences, but also creates pathways for others to rise and thrive. The story closes on a note of hope and forward momentum. Michael, standing before a crowd at the inaugural ceremony of the first Tech Hub, shares his vision of a world where education and understanding can dismantle barriers and build stronger communities. His resilience and ability to transform adversity into action inspire all in attendance, echoing his belief that real empowerment comes from lifting others as we climb. The narrative of Michael Carter's confrontation, transformation, and redemption reaffirms the power of individual resilience when welded with a commitment to collective empowerment.